media today there in Iran that the White House tried 5 times to have a meeting, and he turned them down. We couldn't confirm that on this side about the 5 number, but clearly there was an anxious White House that wanted to see this meeting that ended up with a phone call.
Well, if that's true, I mean, that's pretty extraordinary that the White House was so desperate for a meeting that it tried 5 different times, and that Rouhani decided to turn them down, to not grant them a meeting. Pretty extraordinary, and it suggests who has the upper hand in the negotiations.
Although he's also probably playing for an internal audience to make sure that that's
There's no question that domestic politics are at play there, and that he's feeling some heat for what I think is a PR campaign for the world to suggest that he's more reasonable than the regime actually is. I mean, I think it was interesting to hear Prime Minister Netanyahu say that he was reassured that President Obama said that the U.S. will not give up the option of a military strike. I don't find that very reassuring, and I'm skeptical that he finds it very reassuring. I mean, it's not as if the President of the United States is actually going to say that, and if you go back to his speech, which we discussed yesterday, the speech that Prime Minister Netanyahu gave at the United Nations did not sound like somebody who had just been reassured by the President of the United States that we would be sticking with them.
Yeah, in fact, that's part of Greta's question there that we didn't see, but the speech came right after that meeting, in which, during that speech to the UN, he said, "We're not afraid to go it alone. We're not afraid to act alone."
Right, and he's always said that.
Yeah.
But I think that he has been assured by the administration that they're not going to take that option off the table. I think the administration knows full well that Samantha Power, the UN ambassador, is quoted in an interview this week saying that our posture is skepticism. It's a PR campaign that can be tested, but it has to be real, just like Netanyahu says. I don't know that they've been suckered, but I think that making an effort, it's not surprising at all that President Obama would make such an effort for that symbolic photo, the first time in 29 years the two presidents shaking hands. That doesn't surprise me at all. But I do think that from his own domestic pressures and from his dealings with the Israelis, there's no way he's running around saying peace is at hand.
Privately, the Israelis will tell you that they are concerned that this is starting what will be a long, drawn-out diplomatic effort that will not stop the centrifuges from spinning.
Well, and what's unfortunate is that the U.S. doesn't have a president that's as clear-eyed about Iran as Israel's president is. That's what's clear. And you mentioned the speech to the UN that Netanyahu gave a few days ago, and he laid it out perfectly. If Iran's nuclear ambitions are peaceful, why is it building enrichment facilities underground and hiding them from the world? I mean, why are they interested in the ballistic missiles, which are only good for carrying nuclear warheads to other continents? I mean, it's very plain as day, but I think our president wants to go the diplomatic route, and he's not being clear-eyed about this. And Israel is an ally, a strategic ally, our most important ally in that region of the world, and we don't have his back, and that's a shame.
Steve, do you think, in the wake of the Syria back and forth and what happened diplomatically and in the end result in Syria, that Iran thought this is the time to do what they're doing?
Sure, I think there's no question about that. I mean, I think there had been hints all along that the President of the United States was not serious about a possible military conflict with Iran if it came to that. But there's no question that watching the vacillating and the lack of any kind of strategy, the ad hoc decision-making throughout the entire Syria episode, gave them, allowed them to believe that he was not serious about it. And at one point, the President said in an interview with CBS, his primary objective in Syria was to avoid military conflict there. Well, that's not, that doesn't communicate that he's willing to do that.
That is it for the panel.